Hi everyone, and a very warm welcome to this South by Southwest Online 2021 official event offered by Finland. We'll be talking about how the Hollywood production Jewel came to be filmed in Finland late last year. My name is Hetta Huittinen, and I head up international media and PR for Business Finland. Business Finland is the Finnish national organization for trade, investment and travel promotion, as well as innovation funding. So over the next 30 minutes or so, we will have what I'm sure will be a very lively discussion with the three gentlemen behind Jewel. But before I start quizzing our guests, I'll go over a couple of practicalities with you. Should you have any questions for our panelists, feel free to type them into the chat. I will pass on as many of them as I can during this session onto our gentlemen. This session will also be recorded, and the recording will be available at the Finland Pavilion on the South by Southwest platform after we've finished with our session later today or very early tomorrow then. In a very short while, we'll show you a little teaser from the set of Jewel in Tampere, Finland. But first, a few words about the film. What has been very exciting for us Finns about this film is that it is, in fact, the very first Hollywood production ever to be filmed 100% in Finland. It was filmed during the latter part of 2020, as I mentioned, in the city of Tampere, and during what we all know was and is the pandemic that is gripping the planet. Jewel is a science fiction comedy. It has been written and directed by Riley Stearns, who joins us here today. Jewel stars Karen Gillan, Aram and Beulah Koale, and the film is set to premiere later this year. But now let's watch a little teaser filmed on the set of Jewel in Tampere.
Jewel is the story of a girl who is not really living her life and doesn't care to fight for her life and isn't realizing her full potential.
She finds out that she is dying, and so she decides to go through the process of cloning herself to help her family and her loved ones deal with the pain of her loss.
I wanted Duel to feel like something that I've made before in some ways, and I wanted it to feel completely different in other ways. My overall vision for Duel was just to make something that felt true to myself and that felt, in one word, like loneliness. It's a weird thing making a movie because so many things change and are fluid. Even right now, I kind of think I know what it is, and then I don't at the same time. It's a funny feeling. I know that Finland isn't like in most people's minds right now when they think of this is where I'm gonna shoot a movie, but I think that that's gonna change very soon, and I do think that Duel is gonna be part of the reason behind that.
I would say that Finland is right at the top of the list as a shooting location in terms of the combination of film incentives, the skilled crews, the general attitude and approach, and the feeling of safety, especially during the COVID pandemic. So for us, it's been an absolute dream working here, and certainly somewhere we'd like to work again.
Now I would like to welcome our three guests, the gentleman behind the film. First of all, Riley Stearns, the writer and director of Jewel. How are you doing, Riley?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Welcome. And then Aram Tertzakian, partner at XYZ Films. Hi, Aram.
You're on mute.
I think you're still on mute.
Hi, guys. Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Hetta.
Thanks for being with us. And then Lee Kim, producer at Resolute Films and Entertainment Company. How are you doing, Lee?
How are you, Hetta?
Great. All right. So welcome, gentlemen. I now have a couple of questions for you, but before I dig into those, we here in Finland like to think that our country actually has a great deal to offer international productions. We have our audiovisual incentives, we have pristine nature, we have urban locations, we've managed to maintain a high level of safety during the pandemic, and we have motivated and highly skilled industry professionals who also speak excellent English. But for some reason, as you mentioned, Riley, on the little excerpt there, we're still quite unknown as a filming location. But Riley, how did you actually end up choosing Finland as the filming location for Jewel? Did you in fact have Finland in mind when you were writing Jewel?
I couldn't have known that Finland was going to be where we ended up shooting this film, but it worked out for the best, obviously, and that's why we're here and why we're so excited about the film and our experience in shooting in the country. Originally, I'll start by saying I usually like to write something that can be kind of shot anywhere with the thing in mind that we're an independent film, and so you don't always get to choose exactly where you're going to be. You're looking for things that are going to make the production smoother or something that's going to work for an actor or whatever it is. So I wrote this with the United States in mind, or maybe Canada, and then the pandemic happened, and obviously that changed a lot of things for a lot of people. We looked at Canada, we looked at some spots in the United States, but everyone just, we had this feeling of COVID and the protocols just being this thing where we were going to have too many obstacles to be able to shoot the way that we wanted to shoot the film. And at a certain point, Nate Balatin, who was also at XYZ, brought up the idea of Finland. And I think he thought that that might be something that I'd be interested in, but they had no clue if I would just say, oh no, that's not going to be right for the movie. The second I heard about Finland being an option, I jumped at the opportunity. And obviously the country has been handling COVID in a way that maybe the United States hasn't handled it. And we felt safe and everything fell into place. And a few months later, I was in the country shooting the movie, which was kind of crazy and exciting. And I think that it only made the movie better. And it feels like the movie would not be the same if we didn't shoot it in the country.
Aram, where did you actually suggest Finland and Tampere as a location for the film? When had you seriously started looking at Finland, and what drew you to Finland?
So there's a couple answers to that. The short answer is that as COVID struck, our plans to shoot in North America shifted, and the next part of that answer is that my company XYZ Films has a partnership with a Finnish venture capital fund called IPR VC for film financing. And IPR actually brought up the idea of considering Finland as a shooting location because the COVID situation was so much better under control in Finland than in other places. And we started looking at Finland at that point more seriously. We were connected to Business Finland, we were connected to Film Tampere and a few other regions, and the conversations with Tampere specifically were very fruitful and productive. Lee can speak a little bit more to that on the financial side. But as we started drilling down, we realized, hey, this is a real possibility. And the real question mark was going to be whether or not Riley, our filmmaker, was going to be excited about it practically and creatively. And when my partner Nate, who deserves all the credit, he wasn't here today because I was the one actually in Finland, but when Nate brought it up with Riley jumped at the opportunity, and the rest is history.
You already, Aram, mentioned the financial side of things, and my next question is actually for Lee about that topic specifically. We all understand that financial incentives play a big role when the location of a movie is decided, or filming location rather. And as you mentioned, Business Finland does offer an audiovisual production incentive where the cash rebate is 25%. And in addition, the other regions, in this case Tampere, also offer incentives. But Lee, how do the Finnish incentives compare with those available in other countries?
It was super competitive. I mean, I will say that around the world, there is a big push for bringing kind of foreign productions into the domestic production world. I've shot or have been involved in movies where we've accessed tax credits from the UK, from Spain, Germany, and Canada, in the US as well. And I would say that in terms of the ease, the speed, as well as the reliability, Finland is probably the best experience I've ever had from a tax incentive standpoint. And when we go into these indie productions, you're trying to reduce your gross budget down as much as possible, and much of it is reliant on the speed as well as the kind of guarantee. I mean, no jurisdiction will offer a guarantee because it's usually depends on how much money you spend in the region. But I would say, again, Finland was probably the best experience I've ever had.
Maybe as a follow-up to that, Finland does have a reputation as being maybe an expensive country, but in the end, figuring out the incentives and things into the whole big picture, did you find that to be true?
No, I wouldn't say Finland was any more expensive than any other region. In fact, I found it to be quite cost-effective. The difference being is when you compare it to some place in North America, as an example, you don't have unions in the same way that you might have in the Teamsters or the unions in the U.S. or Canada, and so the cost of the crews are generally speaking going to be a little bit lower than it would in North America, and I would say that the euro right now is more expensive than the dollar, but it all evens itself out eventually. And the cost of accommodation, the cost of travel, and all that stuff, it really I didn't find it to be at all more expensive than any other place. I mean, I would say that the UK is more expensive than Finland, as an example, especially when you're dealing with food, when you're dealing with just general day-to-day living costs.
I would just add to that. Sorry to jump in. I would just add to that it's, compared to the rest of Scandinavia, definitely the most affordable option, and compared to a lot of the world, a very affordable option. I think if you look at places and compare it to places like Eastern Europe, it might actually be a little bit more expensive, but the peace of mind and the quality of life and production for everybody involved is so much better. And so those are the kinds of intangibles that you can't necessarily consider in just the dollars and cents figures.
Absolutely. Now going on to working with the crew and the teams here in Finland. Riley, how did you find working with the Finnish teams, and were they able to realize your vision? Was there expertise, for instance, on par with teams in the US or Canada?
Yeah, I mean, I never had an instance where I wanted something that they couldn't get me. The film looks and sounds incredible. I feel like part of that as well is that when we were shooting, we're one of the few movies shooting at the time in the country. So we really had our pick of the best in every single position. It was a dream team, to say the least, in terms of our gaffer's the best gaffer in the country and our sound guy's the best sound guy in the country. Like, it all added up to be this perfect experience. But the people that they worked with and the people that they know, they speak so highly of, and I'm sure are just as great. And I think the real next step for the country is growing the next generation of the filmmakers and the people who are going to be working in crews. And I think that it's only the beginning for the country. And yeah, there was never a moment where I felt like I wasn't in good hands.
Were there actually any cultural hurdles that you had to cross with the team? This may be a question for both you Riley, and Aram, who were on the ground here in Finland.
I mean, nothing that was a hurdle in the sense that it was a negative experience at all. Rather, I feel like I only had a positive experience working with the crew. It was always learning something new or learning about a different culture. The language is just so fascinating. I think I learned 3 words by the end of it, and one of them was dachshund. And I think that the biggest, like, 2 things come to mind. My name is apparently a very grandma sounding name in Finland, Riley. So I thought that
That's true, actually.
It's a grandma sounding name in LA too, Riley.
It's gender neutral here, but yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. And then I also found it fascinating that Juppe, one of our producers there, Finnish producers, told me that very early on I would notice that people are going to be asking what, like, very strongly, like, instead of just saying, oh, sorry, or I'm sorry, if you don't understand something, you just say what. And it's because of the Finnish translation of the question what. So I just got used to people just whatting me all the time, instead of being like, oh, I'm sorry, or can you say that again? It was just always what. So yeah, those were easy things, easy hurdles to jump over. And yeah, everything about that country is incredible. I cannot wait to come back. Hopefully we can do it with Duel sooner rather than later.
And Aram, maybe a question for you as well regarding the crews. Finnish crews do have a reputation for being quite efficient. Was that your experience as well?
Yeah, I mean, between Riley and Mike, our DP, and our crew, we were wrapping most days early, which is insane for anyone who's ever worked in production. I mean, the amount of times that a day was finishing ahead of schedule or that the day was ahead of schedule, and so we were able to sneak in some other stuff. That is not an experience. Usually you have that happen maybe once or twice on a film. This was happening once or twice a week. The first couple of days I thought something was wrong. And then I realized, no, it was actually just going that well. So big shout out.
That's saying a lot too, because they're 10-hour days as opposed to 12-hour days here.
Yeah. And I wanted to give a big shout out to Film Service Finland, who Riley just mentioned, Juppe and Timo and the team, who are our on the ground producing partners. They were amazing. They made all the cultural translations and assimilations that much easier, and also to Ilkka Rakkonen and Film Tampere, who really made us feel at home in Tampere. And so any of the initial kind of culture shock that might have come for anybody coming from the States was immediately ameliorated, and it was just smooth both on the personal side and also on the film production side. It was just a great experience.
Thanks, Aram. And well, one more question for Riley regarding the fact that that originally, or that Duel was supposed to take place in a non-specific sort of US location. How did Finland actually end up doing in doubling as a non-specific location? Did it affect the story somehow?
Yeah,
or?
so I'll be honest, actually, I think that there are elements of Finland that can look like the United States, but I think that anybody coming to Finland and trying to make it into something it's not is going to have maybe a little bit harder of a time. Granted, I was in Tampere, and that's very different than other regions, and that's a blanket statement. But I ended up embracing the feel of the country, and I think that if anything, it makes the film feel like it takes place within its own world. I think that people watching in Finland are going to know that it took place in Finland or that it shot there. But I think that the real pleasure of shooting in Finland for me and for the country, and for the film, is that I wanted it to feel like this left of center world. And I don't think that anyone in the States is going to be able to place necessarily where we shot. And I only mean that in the best kind of way. I think that embracing the feel, embracing the weather, the look of the architecture, that all just, it added such a layer to the film that it makes it so much more its own thing than I think we would have ever gotten in any other country, let alone the United States.
And I have a final question regarding filming during the pandemic, and then I think we should be ready to take questions from the chat as well. So maybe this one for you, Aram, or if Lee, you want to contribute as well. Obviously, the pandemic was a huge concern for the entire production, and a specific concern as well when you were working with the top talent that are starring in this film. How was all this managed by Finland and on the set in Tampere? Did the team feel safe?
I can go first, Lee. It was very, very safe. We had some really good protocols that we set up from the beginning with Film Service Finland, and then we also, last person I want to thank here is FimLab, which was the medical lab in Tampere in Finland, who provided regular PPE testing and staff for us. And so we were in a situation where we had all the equipment that we needed. We had regular COVID testing several times a week going on. We had broken up our crew into different zones that I'll let Riley speak to if he wants to, but for me personally, it made the whole experience feel even more efficient and didn't really feel like a problem in general. And I think it made our cast and crew feel really comfortable from the get-go, from the day they got here. And a lot of them were coming from, such as myself and Riley, were coming from Los Angeles, which was a COVID hotspot. So there was an initial transition of just feeling really on guard because of where we were coming from. And we remained vigilant throughout, but we also understood that the situation was a lot better and that we had to hope for the best, but always be ready for the worst. And I think that Tampere Film Lab and also Film Service Finland all did a great job in helping us have everything we needed to do that.
Did you, Lee, want to add to that, or shall we? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that before we started production, I mean, SAG, with our actors being US based, SAG was one of the unions that, that oversaw the production, and they have very rigorous standards just in terms of like the startup. And and I will say, and Aram, leveraging off Aram said about Film Service Finland, they were amazing to work with. They understood it, they got it. Despite the fact that Finland's overall numbers were lower than the rest of the world, they were still extremely sensitive to the idea of US folks coming into Finland to shoot. And just in general, I would say that the protocols, even prior to starting to shoot, setting up different zones, this was new for everybody. And the time that they took to make sure that the like SAG as an example has a requirement to get the floor plans, the ventilation systems, and so on, like all of the specs from each location. And FSF did a great job hunting that information down and providing that to give SAG some comfort. And then also just on the logistics side of stuff, one of your colleagues at Business Finland, who was responsible for travel, I mean, she was a rock star. She made sure, she literally was virtually chaperoning everybody from where they were starting from into Finland, had all of the border security, had everybody in Finland on call, as well as all of the different hubs where everyone was traveling. So I mean, it was just an outstanding experience. And COVID aside, I think that level of service, I feel, is ingrained in the Finnish culture, which made it that much, that much more. I don't want to say like it was an incredible experience. It was just an incredible experience overall. Like everybody was just on call for us, ready to go.
And just to mention her by name, that colleague's name was Maria Alto, and
yes,
she absolutely made our travel and logistics a dream in what could have been an absolute nightmare in the middle of COVID. So she deserves a lot of props.
Mm-hmm. We'll be sure to pass on your thanks. Thank you so much for those kind words. We do have a couple of questions now from our audience. First question: are you planning any new project in Finland in the near future?
Yeah, I can speak to that, and the answer is yes. Nothing that we can speak about specifically, unfortunately. I know people love details, but given the experience with Dual, it's absolutely a big focus for us, and we probably don't have the time for it now. But for XYZ specifically, we have a partnership now with several cities in Finland, including Tampere, Helsinki, and Oulu, very focused on bringing more productions and also increasing the competitiveness and the infrastructure in Finland. So it's a major point of focus for us.
Thanks, Aram. And next question we have is, how did you find working with Finnish actors? Maybe Riley, you can respond to that.
Yeah, I found working with Finnish actors an incredible experience. I had, again, our casting director there introduced us to tapes from people all over the country. Obviously, most of them were out of Helsinki, but the travel out to Tampere was incredibly easy by train and what have you. We also, because of the world of the movie, we were trying to avoid having everyone be Finnish accents. So we actually ended up finding a lot of people who were either half Finnish, half British, or were from the United States but moved to Finland because they love it so much and they've continued acting and living there. And it's a nice mix of things. It feels like a very again, it just adds to the world of the movie, but we mixed it with lots of accents. But there will be very familiar faces, I'm sure, to Finnish audiences in the film. And in some positions, people who come in and did just like a day of work and they were just happy to be a part of it. And we loved having them. And I've made some new friends because of it. So yeah, I'm touching on what Aram said about XYZ's working there again. I want to work in Finland on the next one if I can make it work out as well. And I just got to figure out what that next thing is first.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. One more question from Daniel. Huge fan of the art of self-defense and faults here. Wondering what it's like making an indie sci-fi film with both COVID and budgetary restrictions in mind.
Well, I mean, I first thank you very much for appreciating the other films. I think that kind of just the main takeaway from working in Finland was that whereas we had to wear masks and we had to be conscious about washing our hands and keeping a distance and having our zones and in place and everything, nothing about the movie felt, other than those like surface level things, felt like I was hindered by the protocols. And I think that's a testament to the way that the crew worked, the way that the film was put together, the producers involved, the way that Finland helped us. I've said this before, I think that there were some of the hardest days I've ever had on set in terms of just trying to get so much done in one day on this movie. But overall, this was the easiest shooting experience I've ever had. And the fact that that happened during COVID in another country is still mind-boggling to me. I don't know how it happened that way, but whether it was setting up the movie, whether it was shooting or pre-production, or now editing all the stuff that we've gotten back. And I actually basically locked picture yesterday on the film. Nothing about this movie has been stressful in terms of creatively. So I don't know, I don't understand how it happened this way, but I would take this experience again any day for sure.
Wonderful. This is wonderful to hear your comments, and that was all the time we had, unfortunately, for questions. A couple of things we want to still cover. As we've discussed, Duel is indeed the first Hollywood production to be entirely filmed in Finland, but there are other films and series that have been produced here as well. And next, we'd like to just show everyone a quick video highlighting some recent productions done here in Finland. All right, I'm looking at my watch here, and unfortunately we are running out of time. I want to thank Riley, Aram, Lee so much for joining us today, and of course our audience behind the screens. I hope you've all found this discussion informative and inspiring, and we look forward to welcoming many new productions to Finland. We did get quite a few questions in the chat, and what we will aim to do is capture those, and those which have been sent to us with a name and not anonymously, we will try to respond to those questions after the event. But as I mentioned in the beginning, this event has been recorded and it will be available at the Finland Pavilion on the South by Southwest platform for you to watch again. And you will, on the platform and at the pavilion, you will also find out more information about filming as well, Finland, as well as the other events and topics that we have planned for Finland's time at South by Southwest this year. We should be currently sharing a link in the chat to a short feedback questionnaire that we would love you to answer before you leave us. So we hope to see you at the Finland Pavilion and connect with you there. Thank you, everyone, and bye for now.
Thank you.
Kiitos.
Kiitos.